Okay, so good morning again. My name is Abiodun Oke, the founder of Syria Project Services. So I'm recording this because I think I had some hiccups with the encoder. Looks like it messed on some part of the live video. So I'm talking today about my expectations of the formal education system that the formal education system did not meet my expectations. Basically, as a kid, I like cool stuff. I like technology. Basically, just mentioning, I like playing with computers, robots. I like reading books about robots. I like generally things that were man-made. Things that uh, we created, as human beings using the knowledge of physics and engineering. So it was a little bit difficult for me to actually decide on my course of study in higher education. It was between computer engineering and mechanical engineering. I settled for mechanical engineering and then decided I was going to self-teach myself, in computer. So in school, I was kind of doing both, in school. Well, I excel in academics, as is expected. But I know something was missing, we were pretty much preoccupied with exams, tests. Just mention it, about these theories that are outdated, with technologies these days. I'm talking about 90s, right? So that was when internet was introduced. I mean maybe emailing system or something, I can remember. But the bottom line is that a lot of things in the industry were changing very fast, and we were pretty much left in the dust, of these trailblazing technologies. And what happened is when I came out, I do feel like I wasn't well prepared. I my those things that was preoccupied with really were not really they were not the type of skills or the type of knowledge that the industry needed, as a mechanical engineer. Because, what, as I was doing my computer engineering on the side or by the side, I was exposed to a lot of technology that maybe even my mates who were studying computer engineering were not exposed to, because basically it's the same thing, it's just theories, right? So when I came out of school, it was challenging getting a job, because it wasn't only technical skills for me. I wish it was just technical skills. I was also this kid who was not really social. Like I wasn't into the social things, so I had that struggle there also to know those who I should meet, those who I should approach, to get a job in my profession. I struggled with that for about 2 years before I finally got into supply chain management. So why am I saying, telling these stories? It's because when I look at the challenges that job seekers in Canada are having, and then the hiring managers, it's just like that kind of dilemma that they have, struggling with kids who come out of school and they pretty much do not have those skills that are required to hit the ground running. So they have to train them and retrain them, which is expensive, of course. So what you have there is that hiring managers have a different expectations of the type of skills that the schools were imparting, to on the students. So the same thing happens, with the experienced professionals who have years of experience from their home country, because you know what, aside from the fact that you have that expertise and that you know your stuff, you're passionate about your profession, uh, hiring managers also have some other expectations. So one of them will be communications, being an effective communicator. So it's a lot of things. Why it's not like you cannot communicate effectively, in your own home country when you're practicing your profession, but when you add this layer of the Canadian cultural context is a different ball game. And I'll give you example why. If you will be engaging with suppliers, you'll be engaging with clients, customers, and these folks, they have a different type of expectation when it comes to communication. They probably want somebody who can communicate with them clearly. And when you look into the barriers of accent, being able to communicate clearly over your accent, that will throw you into a lot of situation where the customer is struggling. They will hear you, your clients are struggling, your even your colleagues, which I experienced that. It's not like I'm just making this up. So that's one level of these expectations that hiring managers have. There's body language. The way you did things back home is kind of different from the way it's done here, and you need to be able to adapt quickly. Those to those new expectations. Things like our clothes. They have this type of a thing where you do not be too close to folks, and you kind of it'd be unusual. You have body touching and stuff like that. Like some people don't like that. So you need to be very you need to watch for these things, and then adapt to those type of cultural between your interpersonal relation, and then uh, back home in your country, and then here in Canada. So aside from that, I think I already talked about the body language issue. There is a writing skills as well. The way things are written, back home, um, depends on the country you're coming from, will be different from the way it is done here. So adapting really is one of those key things, and it will require retraining as well. Unfortunately, because you're not working for an employer, you can't get the funding to this. You have to pay for this type of training yourself. So beyond that, I think the other one that's important I need to talk about is your social, the social proof, of your capability. So good thing you have these skill sets, great, but then you had it back home, not here in Canada. You haven't practiced yet, so there's no one that could actually say yes. This guy did something for me in before in Calgary or before in Toronto. I'm sure he could do the job. So which is what they call referral, right? Because the reality is this: when they post those jobs online, employers actually do not rely only on resumes coming through those posted jobs online. They also get resumes from contacts within the industry, like maybe from existing staffs, maybe from professional networks. They get resumes from these, what I call, trust relationships. So you would imagine that they would rather employ somebody who they go through a trust relationship, that they can rely on the word of those people who refer this candidate, than somebody from another country, literally, because that's what the case is, especially if you're new here in Canada. So the other thing you need to know is that with the referral, the way it works also is it is has been determined to be so effective that Ernst and Young, the consulting firm, actually 50% of their employees, in one article that when I was doing my research on job search, they did say that more than 50% of their employees are hired through referral, because there's so much belief in it that is the most effective method. So my point is this: you need to have some form of social proof of your capability. Somebody has to be able to refer you, to say you are a great guy, you've done something for them, and that's the kind of expectations that you need to meet. Yeah, when you're job searching. If you want to be successful in your job search and get a job in your profession sooner here in Canada. The final one I will talk about is the issue of integrity and loyalty. When talking about loyalty and integrity, well, all that was back home, right? Now you're here, and then you need somebody to, vouch for you in terms of your loyalty. They will, of course, they will take references from your previous employers, thousands of miles away. But thing also is that if they have a kid who has the same set of skill sets, and they've proven themselves here in Canada, and they have references locally. I mean, it's a leap of faith to hire somebody who has references thousands of miles away, especially if they also have some other great areas like the ones I already talked about. That's why you might see this type of feedback, which goes, we got some candidates who are a better fit, or, don't even get any feedback at all, because they don't want to say things that might look like it's discrimination. So I hope this is helpful insight. As always, like, share, comment. If you're not the one struggling with these issues, please share it with those who find this valuable. The information is critical. Information is power, as they say. If they don't have this information, how would they know how to do differently? And then also tomorrow I hope to share about the things that they, given all this information I've shared for so far, that this is a 10-day, yay. So I talked a lot about paperwork. I have talked a lot about I think I talked a little bit about the Kaizen. I also talked a lot about the people's work. Some of it I mentioned today. Tomorrow, since you have this information now, I'll be talking about some things you might want to do, before leaving your home country, so that it would help to facilitate, some of the things that you now already know. I hope I'll be bringing you that type of content tomorrow. I'll be looking forward to that. Thanks again, and then have a great weekend. Thanks. Bye.